Are proudly Sage for tonight, focusing on positive education. I'm Jen Gish. I'm the Vice President for Marketing and Communications at the college. I want to thank you for joining us. I know we have current educators on the webinar. I know we have retired educators on the call, and I know we have future educators on the call. So, and maybe even some non-educators on the call who are curious about positive education and its impact in what we're doing at Russell Sage. So, we're very excited to have you. For everyone who's in education, thank you for the work you do. You truly do make the world go round because all of the people who make a difference in the world, doctors, nurses, social workers, lawyers, artists, it all started for them in school. What they discovered, what they loved, formed relationships, were encouraged somewhere along the way. It all comes back to our schools. And so we're really, really grateful for the work that you do. And we believe in the work that you do and want to support you in that. That's our role here at Russell Sage. And so in 2024, in the fall, we were the first college in the nation to partner with the Center for Positive Education because we really believe that this was the work that needs to happen in schools, not only to take care of today's students, but to preserve today's educators. And so we're very excited to be able to share what it is. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce our presenter for tonight, Kelly Smith. Kelly is an assistant professor in our Esteva School of Education. She is the chair of our professional education programs, and she was a public school educator, both a teacher of everything except kindergarten, I'm told,
Mhm.
as, as well as a school leader on the administrative side for over 30 years. And decided she wanted a second go around in education, even though, as she reminds us, on bad days, she could be on the beach, retired, because she really wanted to impact the next generation of teachers and to give back to a profession that she felt had given her so much. So I'm really happy to be able to turn things over. Please stick around for a Q&A at the end. We want to answer your questions and we should be wrapped up by 8 o'clock. So, Kelly, take it away.
Thanks, Jen. That was a very nice intro. I appreciate it. I do have some slides to share. Mainly, I'm noted for sharing my slides as a way to keep me on track and me focused. So hopefully we can see those slides. Can everyone,
There you go.
are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So we start with my favorite slide because it has a little person on it, and my Mara Little, one of my most wonderful students, who was a salutatorian this year as she crossed the stage and made herself and everyone who's worked with her very proud. She is gainfully employed already, so that's exciting. So the big question about positive ed is like, first of all, how did we get here? How did Russell Sage College end up talking about positive ed, implementing positive ed, getting other people involved in positive ed? I think Sandy is on the line, one of my colleagues. So she knows what's coming. I know she can anticipate what's coming. But for those of us that are practicing educators, have been in school, are affiliated with education in some way, in my career, I was very, very fortunate to be in hundreds, thousands probably of classrooms by now. I'm entering my 40th year in education, 40 years. So I've been in many, many classrooms, and there was always what I called the secret sauce. I never knew what it was, but you would walk in a classroom and you just knew, like, this teacher's got it. These kids are happy, they're engaged, they're laughing, they're learning, they're asking really good questions, they're high achievers, they're feeling accomplished, they're doing all these, they feel connected to the teacher. The teacher is stopping the lesson to talk about what happened on the playground and prioritizing that over getting through a 40-minute math lesson because she knows that 40-minute last math lesson is not going to result in success for those students because their brain is still wrapped around what happened on the playground. And I was watching this unfold and I knew I could recognize that secret sauce in 5 seconds when I walked in a classroom. I just knew they had it or they didn't. But I never knew what the secret sauce was. I couldn't figure out, like, all encompassing. What is it? I knew what the practices were, I knew what it felt like, and I knew what it looked like, but I couldn't figure it out. And then one day, and I'll try to make this story short, our former dean was walking to his car and I was walking to mine at the same time. And he reached in his pocket and he said, "This lady is calling me and I don't know what she's talking about, something about positive education and blah, blah, blah. Do you know anything about it?" I go, "I do know a little." And he said, "Okay, call her back." And that is when my good friend and now colleague, Sandy Brower, I called her back. We started talking about positive ed. And I said, "That's the secret sauce. That is the secret sauce." Um, this is all of the things I've seen over the years that result in a very positive learning environment and a very happy and productive classroom. I get it now. I'm starting to get it. And that's when I got hooked, started getting the certifications. I'm fortunate to work in what I consider the best place on the planet, with the best administration and the best board of trustees and the best colleagues and students, and they supported my interest in this area. And now other people are becoming interested, and we're reaching out to other departments and doing work. And that's kind of the story of the nut and the follower. I do have a video that I could show. Oh, we have a raised hand. I saw it, Jen. Do we have a question? Maybe not. Maybe it was an accident.
I think so. I'm not seeing it.
Okay, great. I mean, not great, but okay. We'll carry on. The Nut and the Follower video, I'll link. Somehow I'll get to you. I'm not going to take the time to show it right now, but it's a pretty funny video. The premise is a man starts dancing in a field. It's probably a concert or something like that. And he's dancing like nobody's watching and he doesn't care. And then all of a sudden, another person gets up and joins in with him and starts dancing. And you know what happens? Then everybody, right? More and more people start joining in and dancing. And the premise is it just takes one nut, that's the guy who was dancing, and one follower, the person brave enough to say, "Yeah, that's it. I want to do that," to create a movement. And that's what we're hoping happens here at Russell Sage College. We, in a sense, are the follower. The Center for Positive Education is the nut. We are the follower, and we're hoping to make a movement. We're hoping to change education across the United States. And we're hoping that positive ed becomes just as important and just as primary as any other content area. So, what is it? All this great stuff I'm talking about. Um, Positive education is basically the science of human flourishing. So, positive education takes the work of Martin Seligman and in positive psychology and merges it with traditional learning. It's not a separate little program that someone's doing. It's not a packet of papers you can buy. It's not a list of activities. It's truly a way of thinking. It's the science of well-being incorporated with traditional academics to change a mindset, to teach kids how they can thrive and how they can achieve. And it's rooted in PERMA V. The V is missing from this particular graphic, but the P is positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, achievement, and the V is vitality. And the premise is when we help students build in these areas and grow, it enables them not only to flourish and achieve optimal academic performance, but it allows them to flourish in life. We're teaching them skills they are going to ultimately carry far beyond their 13 years in school or 20 years in school or however long they stay in school. They're lifelong skills. And we'll talk a little bit more about PermaV. Um, we talked about this. PermaV and academic achievement and academic subjects being very deeply connected. But what I think is important in this slide is the focus on strengths. So education as a whole has a deficit mindset, right? As teachers, we want to fix. We want to figure out what the kids are deficit in and help them grow stronger. We want to target their weaknesses and build them up. And one of the things I love about positive education is it makes a shift for us. It pushes us to look at their strengths. It makes us prioritize a student's strengths. And given those strengths, we use those strengths to build their weaknesses. So we don't ignore the things that they need in the areas they need to grow in, but our focus is on their strengths. We can utilize a lot of the strengths students have to build their weaknesses, to gain capacity in those areas they might not yet be strong in. So instead of thinking about like what's wrong, what do we need to fix, where's the deficit, we're saying, how do I cultivate this, what's strong? How do I use what's strong to build what needs to be built? It's a real transformational way of thinking. Here's the PERMA V model again. And remember, P was positive emotions. So like teaching kids to notice, name, and navigate their emotions. Like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? How do I work through this? What is this called? Is this normal? Is this something other people experience? Anxiety is so common in our student population. Everybody gets really anxious and they think immediately, I have an anxiety disorder, or this anxiety is not normal and I can't function through it. Helping them understand that this is a normal emotion that people go through, and it only becomes dangerous and unhealthy when we stay there and we can't get ourselves through, or we can't give ourselves time to navigate through that, or we don't have strategies to work through that, that's when it becomes a problem, right? But these emotions are normal. So to notice the emotion, name it, and learn how to navigate is so important. To savor positive emotions and really linger there for a little while and allow yourself to really feel good in that moment and experience genuine happiness, especially in school. It broadens and builds. It makes us bigger. It makes us more creative. It makes us more able to learn. Um, Engagement. How involved am I? How engaged am I? We're going to talk about flow in one of the other slides, but when you get into that place where you're really hyper focused on something and you're so deeply entrenched in that learning or in that doing or in that being, that's a state of flow, and that's a high level of engagement. And then the R, relationships. Who supports me? Who can I count on? Who is that one consistent person in my life who's going to help me build my resilience and my trust and my relationships? And then meaning. Why does this matter to me? Why is what I'm doing important? And that's one of my biggest like harps on lesson planning. So Andrew Gish, I want you to listen to this. Why does this matter? If you're teaching a lesson to a student, they need to know why it matters. They need to understand the purpose. They need to know why I'm learning this and how I can possibly use it. And then the A, accomplishment. What am I achieving? My other really strong point when we're planning lessons for students, no, regardless of their age, um, they have to experience accomplishment. So it's that Lev Vygotsky zone of proximal development. Our job as teachers is to present material for students to learn that's engaging, and it'll be engaging when when it has the right level of rigor, but also kids can experience some success with it and grown-ups can experience some success with it. Imagine always falling short or always failing. That is a very defeating way to go through 13 years in school for students, so or more. So you want to give them something to do and learn that has rigor attached to it, but that they can achieve, maybe with the right amount of support, but they can have a feeling of accomplishment. You can create that as teachers. You can create that as leaders. And then V, vitality, caring for myself. That's your overall health, movement, walking outside, meditation, grounding yourself, all kinds of strategies we can teach kids to just feel good and take care of themselves. So, Ed is helpful, obviously, to students, to adults, to everyone. in a variety of different ways. These are the bulleted points are some of the ways students can benefit. And I think you can see that if you look at these bulleted points, you can see that these are areas that students in today's classroom are struggling in. They don't have that resilience. They don't have the coping skills. These are areas that we're really seeing lacking. Students oftentimes don't have optimism or hope. They don't see themselves as college bound. They don't know what their own strengths are. They certainly struggle to be engaged. They are coming to school with some mental health challenges. Using positive ed strategies combats and creates buffers and barriers to these more negative challenges or barriers taking over their life. It helps them build practices that can help them work through some of these things. So, my premise, and I think believers of positive education would agree, that these competencies are essential not only in the classroom, but in the world. Jen, I did see a hand up again. I'm not sure if it was on error or someone had a question.
I was looking for it too and couldn't find. Hang on, I see maybe something in the Q&A for you. Oh, hand
Oh,
raised by mistake.
Oh, well, look at this. We're at the Q&A stage. So that was a quick overview of kind of what positive education is. Are there any questions, thoughts, ideas, anything, any shout outs that people want to, anything people want to share? There are a lot of people on this call that know more than I do about positive education and have been involved in this for a very long time. So if somebody wants to add something, please feel free.
And we'll look for raised hands. You can drop it in the Q&A and I can kind of stop Kelly and get your questions in there or the chat. We'll monitor all of those things.
Okay. I'll let Jen monitor and I'm happy to take a breath at any given moment. So if a question pops up, oh, Sandy, I see her hand.
Get back to Sandy. There we go. There you go. You should be able to talk.
Hi, Kelly. So
I
nice to be here with you. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to, you're doing a beautiful job here of explaining it, but I just wanted to point out that a lot of times when we talk about positive psychology, people think it's happyology. And I say that in air quotes because it's not really happyology. We do work on our positive emotions, lifting up our positive emotions because that's a more healthier state than being in that negative state most of the time. But we also recognize the negative or the difficult emotions that students, people have. And the emotions are the language of the body, whereas our thoughts and our speaking is the language of the mind. So we have to begin to understand those emotions that we do have, and that includes the difficulty ones, the difficult ones. So it's not strictly about just positive emotions. It's also about recognizing those difficult emotions and learning how to manage them. And like you said, not getting stuck in that emotion because that's when we have the issues that we have. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that it's not all about being happy all the time because I get that a lot. But thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thanks, Sandy. That was a great point. I'm really happy that you chimed in. Bonita has a question.
Yep. And we also, I'm working on getting Bonita clearance up. I think she's good to speak.
I'm I'm so sorry. No, I was just listening and I was going to put a happy hand up for that speaker that was just speaking. I don't have a question or anything. I'm just listening. Sorry.
Oh, no
No.
worries. We love happy hands. Awesome.
Okay.
So there is a question for you in the Q&A,
Okay.
Kelly. Carol would like to know, how are you planning to integrate the PERMA into the teacher education programs and courses in Practicum?
That's coming, Carol. That's coming.
Right.
We're going to address that in a few more minutes. So,
And one more for you. Are there metrics for positive school culture?
Yes, there are metrics for positive school culture. And actually, we have some people on the line who are experts in that area. But we certainly can go back to that question a little further in the presentation. So just remind me.
Great, will do.
All right. We're going to talk about teacher burnout, which not a happy topic, right? But we know the statistics are out there. Positive education can contribute to a decrease in teacher burnout. So this just always makes me laugh. My students, they imagine themselves as a teacher and everything being sweet and working with students. And sometimes how you feel as a teacher is much different, right? You're keeping the dinosaurs from killing each other. You're keeping everything calm. It can be a chaotic job some days, right? It can be very depleting some days. So burnout is happening. The statistics are overwhelming. You can look at this slide and read some of the statistics, but it's real. It's happening. Teachers are leaving the profession. I always tease my students and say, you can't open your TikTok once they get your algorithms and they know you're going to be a teacher. You're not going to be able to open your TikTok without seeing the teacher who's recording from the inside of their car saying it's their last day teaching because they don't feel supported and they're depleted and they're not getting what they need and they've lost their meaning and purpose. And these are legitimate complaints. They are happening in the field of education. But the antidote to this is positive education. We're going to talk a little bit about how that works. So the theory is we as educators and leaders, administrators, anyone who works in the field, in order to promote this environment and this culture and this way of thinking, we have to learn these practices ourselves. And so in the quest to learn the practices ourselves and practice the practices, so that we can then teach our students how to utilize these practices, we're becoming healthier. We're starting to flourish. We're engaging in cultivating and improving our own well-being. And some of the things that we're learning, actually all of the things that we're learning, have a direct and opposing, they're like an antidote to burnout. And I'll show you a slide that maybe illustrates that a little bit better than I'm saying it. So what I love is, again, this shift from not what's wrong, to building on strengths, building on what's strong about us as teachers. And that can be transformative, not only to the students, but to the educator. When we think about teacher burnout, we saw that slide with all the characteristics. It is exhaustion. It's becoming detached from your students and your purpose. It's feeling like you can't meet the criteria set by the state or by your school or by the administration, right? All of these really depleting factors. And they contribute to burnout in a very, very strong way. But if we intentionally and with effort build overall well-being and give opportunities for teachers to address their own well-being, their own resilience, meaning connection to their students, they are going, that oftentimes is the opportunity or the outlet that they need to minimize the sense of burnout that they might be feeling. I hope there are some superintendents, some administrators, and some leaders on the call, because they're kind of where the rubber meets the road. This environment has to be systematized for teachers, for educators, so that it then trickles down to students. So burnout risk, some of the risks that we talked about are over here on the left of the screen, and the antidote or the positive ed response is over on the right. So emotional exhaustion. We build positive emotions, we build in vitality, movement, good physical health. Those are getting enough rest, prioritizing that, isolation, we build positive relationships. Loss of purpose, we help teachers create meaning and remember why they got into the game to begin with. Feeling ineffective, we as leaders, we have to build in accomplishment. We have to capitalize on our teachers' strengths, and we have to celebrate their strengths, give them opportunity to showcase what they're the areas that they're really strong in. To combat disengagement, we have to get teachers engaged in that sense of flow that I talked about earlier. And then chronic stress, that's when you need those resiliency skills, right? You need to build resiliency and well-being. So I like to think of positive education as the antidote to burnout. A specific example would be a teacher who's disengaged, right? And she doesn't feel connected to her work anymore. And positive ed, maybe reconnecting the teacher to their purpose and their meaning again, right? So a way you could do that could be to encourage reflection. As a leader, you can say, I see you're down. I see this is getting harder for you. Or if you've already built that relationship, your teachers are going to tell you that they're just feeling burnout, that they're really struggling. But if you have that information, you can help them reconnect to their meaning and purpose. Why did you become a teacher? What excited you about it? What kind of impact do you feel you're having on the students? Think about a time when you had a really, really powerful impact on a student. How did that make you feel? What did that look like? You can kind of coach them through reconnecting to their meaning and their purpose, connecting their values and their mission to what they're doing, making sure it's really where they want and need to be. And when teachers reconnect with their why, when anyone reconnects with their why, they're more likely to be motivated and they're building resilience during a really difficult time. Meaning acts as a buffer against burnout. And so if you know why you're doing something, why it's important to you, what it brings out in you, who you want to be in that moment, that is really fortifying and oftentimes enables people to move forward in a really positive way.
Kelly, we
One
have
more.
questions in the Q&A, one being,
Go.
are restorative practices included?
They are. I bet I know who asked that question. I think we have a couple experts on the line about restorative practices, but certainly restorative practices can be and are hugely important in positive education. And if anybody wants to speak more in depth to that, they are certainly welcome to.
Wonderful. Sandy also wanted to share the motto for positive education is learn it, live it, teach it, embed it. What teachers learn and practice becomes part of who they are, and that is what they bring to the classroom. Teacher well-being directly affects the students in the classroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're not there, when you're not whole, your students know it and they're not getting what they need in that day either. And you're not either, right? So it's mutual. One more example, positive education, of how positive education increases positive emotion based on Fredrickson's work is the concept of broaden and build, the broaden and build theory. It basically says that when we experience more positive emotions, our ability to cope with challenges increases, right? So probably people are thinking like, well, how do you experience more positive emotions? It is what it is. Well, not true. We can help ourselves experience positive emotions using practices like gratitude, celebrating success, savoring positive moments, really sitting in it and experiencing and feeling it. Demonstrating acts of kindness. That makes the person who's actually being kind, that inflates them. That creates positive emotion with them. In terms of savoring positive moments, it's one of my favorites. When my daughter got married 11 years ago, I remember very clearly and very beautifully going up on the balcony level and looking down and watching the wedding alone in a quiet moment, from the balcony, looking down and having this overwhelming feeling of happiness. And that's an example of savoring, just being all in and letting every part of your body experience something that's really positive. We don't do enough of that. We just say, oh my gosh, that was fun, and we move on, right? So these practices are so important, and they do allow us to broaden and build, which eventually helps us cope when things get a little choppy. Any questions? Anything going on, Jen?
Yes,
Or
there
shall
are quite a few. One of the questions is, how can urban, public, and charter schools embed positive education into daily practice to improve culture, climate, belonging, and achievement?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for asking that. That is our mission. That is our mission and the mission of the Positive Ed Consortium, which we have members on the call from the consortium. IPEN's mission, the Flourishing Center, part of their mission is to embed this work in schools across the United States. So if this was something you were interested in, I would say training. And I'm happy, I'll provide my email at the end, and I'm sure Jen can send my email to the people who attended. If I don't know the answer, I know the people who do know the answers, and I lean into them quite a lot. But I would say training, and probably my most important advice would be simultaneously, administrators need to be trained with teachers, and administrators need they need the same training, but they need an additional level in terms of how to make this mind change and these shifts intentional and systemic. So, so I can talk more about like what I would suggest in terms of an implementation and learning more about positive education. But later on in the presentation, we're going to talk a lot about the work we plan to do, some of the work we are doing, and how to embed this in schools.
Wonderful. There's a couple more questions, but I'm going to hold them to a little further in because I think you might hit upon some of them.
Okay.
But to kind of dig a little deeper into this person's question, and I know we've had conversations about this, they're asked about urban, public, and charter, which there's so much pressure in terms of academic gains and achievement. And I know you have strong feelings around how important this is to that. Could you just address that quickly before we keep on going and then come back around?
Sure. So I have a slide coming up, and it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Anybody who went to college for education and other areas learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, we can't reach that pinnacle of self-actualization unless we have all these other needs met. And all of those other needs are PERMA-V. Everything fits into PERMA-V. So in terms of urban education, these kids, a lot of these students need this work in schools. Like, it has to be essential. They're not going to achieve academically until those basic needs are met, until they learn how to trust people, how to navigate their emotions, how to experience engagement, what it feels like when they're accomplished, until there's an instilled sense of hope and they have meaning and purpose in their life. Without those things, their brain is not ever going to transition to a place where it can take in the learning that needs to happen. So we're kind of skipping that step, and we're going right to the learning and just keeping kids at baseline. And what positive education is saying is, no, they have to be north of neutral. They have to be above baseline. They have to be in a state of flourishing to really learn optimally. And we believe every student can get there with the right support. I hope that answered the question.
Great. And the person can always follow up on that if it did not, but they have a couple others that we'll get to toward the end.
Good. Great. Okay. So improve student outcomes. We kind of already hinted at this in the conversation we just had, but that's what we want, right? School wants outcomes. They want kids achieving proficiency or above on state assessments. They want them to do well in the tasks that are set before them, benchmark assessments, whatever they're assessing. But they can't do well without the positive ed piece. They really can't. Those are essential needs. So positive ed is research based, and the truth and the powerful truth is students learn best when they're doing well. And by doing well, I mean they're flourishing, right? They're in a state of that north of neutral, not baseline, north of neutral. They're doing well. So positive ed intentionally embeds well-being strategies with academic skills, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. And it allows students to engage more deeply in academic material, in relationships. It allows them and supports them in persevering through challenges. It teaches them how to build healthy relationships through modeling, through opportunities, through conversations. And overall, they're achieving at higher levels. So this graphic is kind of like traditional education. We go up the steps and we teach kids what they need to know to pass the test. And we're saying positive ed is more interested in who that child or that student is becoming, right? So it's about what they need to know. We're not ignoring that, but it's also about who they need to become as human beings in order to live rich lives after grammar school, after high school, after college. We want them to be flourishing human beings who can contribute positively to society and to the world. So again, another graphic, the PERMA-V elements are over here: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment and vitality. And when students experience positive emotions and learn how to experience positive emotions, motivation, creativity, and their ability to learn increase. When they know how to deeply engage with content, deeply engage with other people, deeply engage with a situation, their attention increases, their effort improves, and their ability to persist when things get difficult increases. When they know how to interact and build relationships, their sense of belonging increases, and they connect more to the school environment. The place becomes important to them. The people become important to them. It's part of who they are. When when they understand their meaning, they have a greater purpose. There's relevance in learning. They know why they're learning and what could potentially come of this, how they could utilize these skills. It's more meaningful for the student, and it provides more meaning in the task or the moment. And then increased accomplishment obviously results in increased confidence, goal attainment, and achievement. And we talked about that, the sweet spot, like teaching them what they need to know with just the right amount of rigor, but also success being the end results. And not every time. Some kids they're going to interact with material and it's going to be really difficult and they're not going to do well. Well, hopefully they've built the resilience through all of this other work where they know they can reflect upon maybe what they did wrong and they're eager to come back and try again, right? They have that resilience to say, okay, I didn't do well that time, but I'm going to give it another try and I'm going to change this, this, and this. And hopefully they have the relationships to talk to people about what went wrong and get advice about how they could do something that would result in a more promising outcome. Vitality improves energy, overall focus in school, and well-being. So all of these things, I hope you're seeing how they're all connected. This is very busy. This slide is very busy, so forgive me. But it really shows that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how PERMA-V really is embedded in all of the foundational skills needed to get to that point of self-actualization or human flourishing. The premise is that when we engage in these practices every single day with students, when they're embedded and they're part of the work and they're part of the way we interact and react in the classroom, that students are getting opportunities to practice these skills and they're going to get better at them. So focus in class, retaining information, thinking creatively, solving problems effectively, and persisting through difficult tasks. All of those things improve because we're practicing these PERMA V strategies. The overall takeaway is that positive education helps create learners who are ready to learn. When our brain is in a place where it can take in the information, then we can really learn. Just going to take a pause to see if there's anything in the chat, Jen.
There is. Let me grab some stuff. Would you describe this as educational psychology? What has changed or is different now?
Yeah, I would say educational psychology is a much bigger framework. Positive education is derived from positive psychology, which is one part of probably ed psych or psychology. It's derived from the principles and practices of positive psychology, which are all rooted in PERMA V. It's just positive psychology for education. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Wonderful. And we have Paula asking, this is a comment rather than a question. It is extremely important for administrators to buy into this and practice it themselves to use with their teachers in order for this concept to work. One of the best principals I ever worked for would build on why he valued you as a person as an educator.
Yeah, I don't know who that principal was, Paula, but you nailed it. And I said it earlier, the training and the embedded work and the practice involved in this is transformational in a classroom. But if you don't have a leader who understands it and is building those systems for those things to happen, and by systems, I mean something as easy as what your principal did, explaining why they value you, why you are essential to that building, what you're giving to that building. That's one system in place. That's one way, one pathway for to reinforce positive education with teachers, right? So if you don't have principals that are not only learning these practices with the teachers and then also learning about an additional layer, the leadership layer, and how they make those systems work for people, you're missing the boat. So that's a beautiful point. Thank you for sharing that.
And Sahar wanted to add, I believe that the teachers need support more than the students. And I'm thinking, Kelly, of when you first introduced positive ed kind of formally to our own education majors, they were saying to you that they wish they had had a school experience like that as students.
They did. Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure who made that comment, but I hear that loud and clear. I think the comment was that they think teachers need this more than the students, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I wouldn't argue who needs it more. I think everybody needs it. I think that teachers need it. If teachers don't have it, they're not going to be able to build it for their students and in their classrooms, right? They're not going to be able to model it. So if teachers aren't well, they're going to have a really hard time creating a flourishing classroom. So we definitely want leaders trained. We want them practicing these skills. We want teachers trained. We want them practicing these skills. And then this will just generalize to students. Then it goes to the students, right? But these things can happen simultaneously. Leaders can be trained, teachers can be trained, and they can be doing the work with students in the classroom. And if all the stars align, we hope very soon at Russell Sage College to be doing this work in a hub school with teachers, with administrators, with students. So stay tuned. Next year, I'll do another webinar and I'll update you on that. How's that?
Wonderful. We have a great question by Carol, which really gets at the pressures facing schools and how the initial reaction for some schools when you bring up positive and teachers, another thing. So Carol says the OECD report 2025 is calling for educational institutions to move from preparing successful workers to developing ethical, resilient human beings. Is this report and the PISA era accountability testing part of this new vision you are talking about? Also, can this new initiative be measured to counteract testing?
Well, I don't have the answer to that. I mean, I certainly have my opinions about testing. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. We could have a whole other webinar on that. We're moving away from regions, so the testing, the standardized testing came about for younger students because it was supposed to be a trajectory to how they would perform on the regions, which there was zero alignment between the two, very little alignment. So I'm not, we could talk about testing forever. I'm not really sure, and I don't have the authority to really speak to that. But um, do I think that I think that the positive ed initiatives are going to be strengthened by the initiatives Carol mentioned. I think schools are not going to be able to ignore that we need a cultural reset in classrooms, and we need well teachers, well students, and well administrators, and that has to be a priority. So I think it may equalize the importance of this work with the academics. At least that's my hope. But I don't know. I feel like Carol, you would know better than I would. We have some real experts on this webinar.
Wonderful. And one more that I was going to save to the end, but it feels like it fits in here. Where is burnout occurring most across the school community? Students, staff, leaders, or families? And what is driving it?
Wow, great question. I don't know the statistic. I don't have statistics on that. I think burnout is happening across the board. Um, I think we hear about it, and I'm totally open to hearing other people's opinions on this. I think we hear about it more from teachers, teacher burnout. I think that's we hear more about that, and maybe that's because the teachers are on the front lines every day. The teachers are working with the students. The teachers are the people, right? That can build these relationships and make these changes on a day-to-day basis. But they can't do it without the leaders. They can't do it without the administrators. They can't, families certainly could benefit from a lot of this work. And if we are to move forward in the way we hope to, we'll be working with all of those cohorts, families, administrators, teachers, students, staff, bus drivers, everyone. I don't think there's a person on the planet that can't benefit from positive psychology, which is what positive education is.
Great. I think keep on going and we'll come back to some more in a bit.
Okay. So back to positive psychology, positive education. It's a practice. It is not a program. And we're going to talk a little bit about what it isn't so that we understand what it is as well. Positive education really is a way of being. It's a mindset. It is not at all. There are certainly resources. Some of my colleagues and very wonderful people have created resources that I think are extremely complementary to this work and have broadened my understanding about what positive education is. There's a Thrive workbook that Dr. Rick Evans created for students that certainly is helpful in experiencing some of the pieces of positive education. But there's no, just because you're doing a gratitude activity on Monday doesn't mean that that's what that kid needs on Monday, right? So it can't all be programmatic. It really has to be responsive in nature. We have to know and anticipate what our kids need. We have to be able to stop and really be reflective of how we can utilize an opportunity to teach into positive education. So it really is a practice, a mindset, and a way of being, a way of showing up. A good comparison is if you buy a reading program, right? Your school district purchases Lucy Calkins units of study, and they say, okay, that was probably the wrong one to use as an example with everything going on, but they purchase a reading program. The reading program isn't literacy; it's a resource, right? Literacy on the same by the same token is not a program. It's a concept we have to teach. And that's what positive education is. It's a concept, a mindset, a way of being. I like the last statement. It's a lens through which we approach our teaching, learning, relationships, leadership, and school culture. It's who we are. It's how we show up. It's the expectation. So thumbs down for positive education as a program, right? It's not what we want to be, it's not what we are, but it is what people think sometimes. They'll hear positive education and they'll say, oh, social emotional learning standards. Well, yeah, they promote the social emotional learning standards, but they aren't the social emotional learning standards. So positive education is not an initiative of the month, a bunch of isolated activities that don't make sense in the moment. And it's not one more thing that we throw on a teacher's plate and say, oh, now we're going to do positive ed. It's a practice. It's who we become. It's at the end. So Amelia, one of my teachers and trainers, she always says, it's who we be. It's who we be. It's who we want to become. It's how we show up. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of approaching situations. It's how we talk to each other. It's how we give feedback. It's how the way in which leaders provide support or coaching to their staff. It's the way our classrooms feel and the way they look. And that's secret sauce, that sense that we feel when we walk in that this is us. This is who we are. We belong here. And it's the way we approach challenges and setbacks and so much more. So again, a graphic program approach versus a practice approach, right? So I use teaching gratitude during a designated lesson. That would be a program approach. We're a practice approach. So we embed appreciation and recognition into everything we do, into authentic classroom interactions. Administering a strengths survey once a year. And analyzing the strengths. That's not really helpful unless we're really utilizing and leveraging those strengths, right? So regularly and consistently helping students identify their strengths and how they might use those to move forward with a task. That's a practice. Conducting a resiliency workshop. Well, workshops are great. They're one-stop shops, right? Teachers have teachers have to learn how to teach resilience every single day. And then delivering SEL activities, which are social emotional learning activities. These things are great and they are helpful, but they're not sustainable. They're not sustaining activities. But integrating wellness into teaching and learning and relationships every single day is sustaining, right? It will sustain. So positive education is woven into the fabric of everything we do. And then it's sprinkled around into other things. It's just really how we show up, who we are. And I like this metaphor. It helps me it just kind of stick to me, the thinking stick to me. Positive ed's like a garden. It's like gardening rather than manufacturing. So in a garden, we grow all these different types of flowers and we provide the conditions so that the flowers can bloom and blossom, right? So if we notice that it hasn't rained in a while, we give some water. If maybe they need a little extra boost, we put some fertilizer down. We cultivate an environment that those flowers can grow in versus manufacturing, which it doesn't take into account what you need. It's just doing what is supposed to be done in a certain order, right? So positive education is gardening. Programs are manufacturing. And for kids, for adults, for humans who have different needs, it's not the answer. It's not the way to go. Again, the concept of having opportunities that allow us to practice this every single day in the interactions we have with each other, with our students, that's where we start to create habits, right? Practicing the practices. So we're not perfect at it. We might try something and it backfires and it doesn't work, and maybe try something different, or we don't know what to say in a moment to help a student navigate through a difficult challenge. It's okay. We're not going to break anybody. I promise you, by trying these practices, you're doing more for students than you are if you just ignore them or push a student to do something that they don't have the capacity to do in that moment. We're never going to hurt the child by providing these opportunities and practicing the practices. How are we doing with questions, Jen?
We have a couple and a couple comments.
Okay.
It might be bad timing on my part of when the question was asked as to what it connects to, but Shanae said, looking to go the community school route. Does this
Mhm.
tie to community schools at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I dare any of the participants to ask me if positive education ties to anything and me say no. Like, I can't see anything this work doesn't connect to, but community schools, when you're providing so much support to families that so much deserve that type of support and can benefit so greatly from this support, I think positive education and positive psychology tie perfectly into that because guess what? The parents need this training too. And it's a perfect way of doing some parent training and some student training and some staff training together. So yes, 1,000 times yes.
Well, and Alice has a question. What do you see are the challenges to integrating this into schools? So I think right where we're getting into it's not just another initiative to implement, might be the answer there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an answer there. I think you really need to have buy-in from, I am not a top-down girl, but I think you have to have buy-in from the top. Like the superintendent has to say, uh-huh. Yep, this is what we need. We need to change the way we think about our students, the way we think about ourselves, the way we prioritize staff, the way our culture in our building, the way we interact with one another, the feeling of trust that we can build or we haven't built. We have to utilize opportunities to teach these skills. We have to recognize that students have to have these skills before they can actually learn academic tasks and retain them. There has to be an acknowledgement that this is who the district is becoming. And that's not easy work, right? That's not easy work. Now, that is not to say that, everybody probably knows the starfish analogy, right? About the man walking on the beach and there's millions of starfish on the beach and he takes one starfish and he throws it back in the ocean and another man comes up to him and says, why are you bothering? Like, you're never going to get all these starfish in the ocean. You're not going to save all these starfish. And he says, I saved this one, right? So it's kind of that analogy. I wouldn't stop a school or a teacher from creating this in her classroom because she didn't have or he didn't have administrative support. I would say go for it, go for it. But it's just so seamless and so smooth when everyone's on the same board and the systems are in place to perpetuate this work and support the teachers and the students and the families. So in the perfect world, everybody's on board, but certainly if this is something that interests you as maybe a teacher, could you adopt this in your room? Absolutely, for sure, 100%. Teachers have been doing it for years. I've watched it. They maybe didn't know they were they didn't know it was positive ed. It was just a secret sauce, but they've been doing it. But just imagine if all of our schools adopted this thinking and these practices.
And lots of fans in the chat in terms of this is not going to be an easy task, nor will it happen overnight, but the outcome would be worth it. And then Carol adds, we hear about teacher burnout statistics because it is impacting teacher retention and the hiring process. New hires cost money, and embedding PERMA to keep teachers can be one way to get the attention of school leaders. Not only does it save money for districts, it keeps more high quality teachers in front of our students.
Yeah, we're gonna bring Carol on the road with us. She's nailing it. She's nailing it. Yep,
So I know
absolutely.
we're coming up on time, Cal. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how we're implementing this at Sage in those new teachers. So they hit the ground running and then they're prepared to stay in the field after they enter the field.
Sure. Before I really jump with both feet into this, and this part will be quick, I want to say this. Our when our teachers are going into the field, when our future educators, our students are going into the field and working in schools, I cannot quantify the comments I get, but I get regular comments about how our teachers are different. Our students are prepared differently. Our students are so ready. Our students are making connections with other students. Our students immediately jump in their sophomore year for field work. They're interacting with students. They don't see their cell phone. They're connecting. The comments I get that are Perma V comments that are supportive of the work we're doing with positive education are remarkable. I'm shocked when I go someplace and someone doesn't say something. It's very unusual. So our teachers do the teachers that I don't want to say producing because that sounds the teachers that we're preparing to go into the field, they look different. They have a different understanding. They have a different mindset, and it makes me so happy. But on the same in the same moment, I worry because I worry that they're going into environments that aren't supportive of this thinking and these strategies and these techniques. And, that's the change I want to make. That's the change I want to happen. So, how are we preparing our students? First of all, we're the first college in the nation to partner with the Center for Positive Education. We are so incredibly, I mean, I can't even put into words how fortunate we are at Russell Sage that we have a president that is approachable. You can talk to him, you can share your ideas and your dreams with him, and he's someone, and so are our other administrators who want to help you make that happen. That is very unusual, and trust me when I tell you, I don't take it for granted, and I am extremely grateful. We have a board of trustees that actually talks to us, and we talk to them, and we laugh together, and we learn together. It's not a normal place, but I think it's a positive education sanctuary. I really do. I think the work that we do is positive psychology at its finest. So we have that environment. We have this all-in approach. So positive education is being taught and developed and more deeply understood by everyone. We're making moves right now to for our CTL group to really focus on positive education for faculty. We're doing some work at our joint trainings for staff coming up. Our administrators know about positive ed. Jen is one of our administrators. She's read probably as many books on positive psychology as I have. Our board of trustees, I had a board of trustees member approach me about a conference we're going to. And she's like, I think my friend and I, who's another board of trustees member, would like to come to this conference and at least hear the keynote. And I was like, where could you possibly work that people would be all in like this? Jen calls it the land of unicorns and rainbows, and I think she's right. So we're all in. We're all in. We've done some work embedding positive education activities and practices, and Sandy's on the line. She worked with our staff on that. I worked with some staff, but Sandy took on the bulk of that work. And we looked at current syllabi and places that Perma V and positive education and positive psychology would just naturally and authentically fit in. And so we embedded some content and activities that would help future educators understand what positive psychology is or positive education is and how it can impact them as future educators and also their students. We also have we call it an NCR, no credit required, but it is a required course where students are learning about positive education, the foundational principles, and all students have to take that. We're looking at micro-credentialing and some other areas that we want to expand upon so our students have a full complement of experiences and practices. Our 201 class, which is a foundational course for freshmen and sophomores, Foundations in Education. I've embedded a lot of positive ed content in that class because I think it's relevant, important, and crucial for teachers in the field. We've also partnered with some of the best in the business. We have a connection to IPEN really through the consortium, the Positive Ed Consortium. But we have some interest in from IPEN in supporting our efforts. The Positive Ed Consortium and the people involved in that group, I can't speak highly enough. They are some of the most impressive individuals I get to listen to and learn from. The Flourishing Center is where most of my training came from, my formal training. But my boots on the ground, I would say Consortium has really been incredibly supportive. The Flourishing conference that we're attending, we have, I want to say we're up to 10 staff who are attending from different disciplines across the college. So we're going to that together as a multidisciplinary team so that positive psychology and positive education can expand beyond the education department. There's a lot of interest, and I think that's going to be a really great way to start those initiatives. And that's at Ridley College this summer. So we're spreading the word, we're walking the walk. We're training our teachers, we're doing webinars, we're doing conferences, we're yelling from the highest mountaintop. Hey, this is what positive ed is. This is what our students need. This is what our teachers need. This is what humanity needs. And we're hoping it catches on. So with that, I'm going to ask if you're willing to, I'm going to invite you to share in the chat, maybe something that shifted for you based on hearing this information, possibly something you're walking away with, maybe something you're still wondering about, or anything else that you'd like to share. So if you want to take a minute to pop that in the chat, that would be great. And in the meantime, my sign off is going to be a nut, be the follower, or be part of the movement. But get the word out, learn more about positive education, network with people who know a lot about positive education, because I think and I believe with all of my heart that this is the antidote to what's going on that's not so great in education. I believe this could be transformational once people start adapting these practices.
Wonderful. I'm watching the chat, everybody. I hope you're busy typing. A couple of things. Sandy noted that IPEN is the International Positive Education Network, and they are working to build a US branch, as there are branches in Italy, Singapore, and Canada. So this really is being embraced worldwide as an important thing for schools across the world. Carol says she is inspired to be part of our movement. Let me know how I can support your vision, Kelly. I am ready to go on the road with you 100%. And Sahar says academic achievement remains important, but it is viewed as a natural outcome of creating the conditions in which both students and educators can flourish.
That's right.
And Rick wanted to share that it's great information and we're hitting on really important topics. Kelly is doing such an outstanding job.
Rick, he's such a cheerleader. I love that. Rick actually, it's Rick.
Rick Evans. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure. He's actually the person that's doing a lot of leadership training, and man, he shared some of his work with me the other day, and I was flabbergasted. It's just incredible work. So we're hoping to do some side-by-side training in the very near future.
And something important we did not mention is that we are investing in an Institute for Positive Education at Russell Sage. Kelly is getting a partner in this work, a new one, a co-director of that institute, in Dr. Steve Hoff. He is a school psychologist by training and a youth mental health expert who taught at St. Rose for 20 years and then was most recently at UConn. So we're excited to welcome him. That was a match made in heaven when the two of them met, and I'm really excited to see them out in schools and working with people. And we had Cheryl saying, thank you for the information. We had Andrew saying, hearing more about positive education is definitely inspiring. Looking forward to engaging more with it. Paula says, this is a wonderful concept of positivity that is needed everywhere, not just in education. I would love to chat with you sometime.
Share my email, Jen.
I will. So I will do a follow-up email to everyone who registered that will have the recording. It will have, so give us a few days to get that all together. It will have the slide deck. That way there was a request for your slide deck, Kelly, so we can share that out. And Kelly's contact information, as well as any resources that Kelly passes on that she'd like us to get out. We'll make sure that that gets shared. So tomorrow is a holiday, but we will get that out to you early next week as a follow-up.
Thank you so much for spending the time with me tonight. I don't know a lot of people who would give up 7 to 8 o'clock on a Thursday before a holiday. So you guys are rock stars. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.